today, Michael?
I am awesome, Martin. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you very much. Excited for this show today.
Yeah, I'm always excited to be here. And I want to welcome everybody else to AGTP Daily. Martin, we go live every weekday at 11 a.m.
Yes.
Eastern Time,
Yes.
to discuss the most important tech stories in the US. Today is Friday. It's hard to believe it's Friday already.
Mhm.
We're getting close to the end of May. It's the 22nd of May,
Already.
2026. I know, exactly. And here's the good thing about today and yesterday and the day before is that for 3 days in a row, I've got the day and the date correct. The first 2 days of the week, I don't know what I was doing. But the
I
last
mean,
3 days, I'm on. I got it.
you
I
you
nailed it.
sp- you spoke to Daria on Sunday, and on Monday you said like last week I spoke to
Last
Daria.
week, I know last week, but that's what it felt like. Maybe that's why I
Exactly.
got the date wrong. I'm like, back
Exactly.
in 1932. Anyway, so today we're gonna talk about some interesting stuff, Martin.
Mhm.
Is Cursor gonna be acquired for $60 billion?
Mhm.
And interesting to us because we spoke with somebody super senior at Cursor last
Yes.
week. Actually, not
Yes.
last week, on Sunday,
Saturday.
on Saturday. Fair enough, which technically was last week. So fair enough. Um, And then AMD CEO is coming out saying the CPU market will grow over 35% annually. It normally grows 3%, so that should be pretty interesting. And then later in the show, we will be joined by Ankur Shah, a co-founder and the CEO at Straiker. I love the way they spell this,
Mhm.
to explore how AI native security will help enterprises safely deploy agentic AI systems without losing control of their data, still being able to make really good decisions and without losing control of automated actions. And this is cool because this is something we actually ask people about. If you start to deploy, tons of agents, what are you going to do for security?
Yes.
So
Exactly.
it'll just be interesting to talk to somebody who's actually working on that. Um, anyway, let's talk about Cursor. So the other thing here is that Cursor is experiencing what I will call a $3 billion enterprise surge. What does this mean? Cursor's reported annualized revenue. I feel like this is a thing that people are doing now. They're saying like in December, their revenue was a billion something, like 1.25. I can't remember what it was exactly. Work with me
Okay.
here. Yeah. $1.2 billion annualized as of December 2025. And then in February it was 2 billion.
Mhm.
And now it's 3 billion. And it's May. So it's not doubling, it's not going up by a billion every month, but for a company that does what they do, that seems like it says like it seems like it's one of the fastest scaling AI application companies in the world.
Yes.
And that's kind of cool. And here's the other thing too. You did this when we were talking about Anthropic. I don't know. This must have been a few weeks ago already. Mark, do you realize we've done this is the 85th episode of AGTP we've
80,
done?
80 for already.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
My brain just like
Wow.
frizzled for a second. But you realize today is like AGTP Daily 85?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Anyway, back to the news. But we did this on one of the other episodes when we talked about Anthropic, um, how many enterprise customers they have and kind of what the least amount of money was that they were paying them. Remember, I think you said there were 1,000 customers paying them at least a
Yes.
million or three. I can't remember what the number was,
Yeah.
right? $3 million a
Million.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that. So Cursor now reportedly has 3,000 customers paying them at least $100,000 annually. So it's like real stuff.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, that was
It
the point
is.
we were making. Sorry to interrupt you, but that was the point we were making with Anthropic was it's not just that like the revenue's up and like this making a little bit over here and a little bit over there. There's a
Mhm.
consistent group of companies that are paying them a consistent amount of money, and that suggests that it's actually real. No?
Yep. No, for sure. I mean, I think that's huge, right? But that was Cursor pretty much one of the first AI app to be that huge outside of the model themselves.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
they are one of the most successful, if not the most successful, right? Outside
It's the
the
it's the most successful. So this
Mhm.
company was launched in 2023 by a startup
Yeah,
called AnySphere, right? And then it became one of the fastest growing software companies. You're right, outside of the hyperscalers. Sorry, I mean outside of the model companies
I think
in
they are
history.
in history. I think it's insane when you think about it, right? It's absolutely insane. Plus that they do a tool that's really aimed at one type of client and one type of client only. That's for developers, and that's it basically, right? Like they don't. It's not like the LLMs would can be much more mass market.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can use Chat GPT for translation or for cooking recipe or for plenty of stuff, right? But Cursor at first was just a complete tool, right? Like
Right.
you could only, right, that with big quotes once again,
Yeah,
but
only.
the only thing that the only feature that people were buying was the autocomplete, and then they had pretty much, I think that in my opinion, like the way I see that is that they had to kill their first products to then go to agentic coding.
Could
And
you imagine
yeah,
thinking that
mhm,
code completion
yeah,
was magic? Because it felt like it.
yeah, it felt like it, yep.
But then, if you thought code completion was magic, and I think this is one of the things that Nick said to us as well, right, during our recording, he was like, it just seemed magical to me. And I would go to
Yes.
my wife and I would tell her like how magical it was. And then now what we're doing is this agentic AI coding, which is just like,
Mhm.
it's magic of magic.
Yes. And
Do
so
you know what I mean?
when you think about it, that you launch a company, right, in 2023, you grow so fast, you are like one of the like maybe the fastest growing company of all time. And then you have to completely pivot. Like you have to change everything. Like
Because
you're
everything changed.
because everything changed, right? Like so
Yeah.
so the story of the company to me is really really insane, right? Like it's
Yeah.
in just 3 years they basically had to grow twice from start, right? They
But
had to do everything twice. To me
yeah,
that's crazy that they have
it
been
is
able
crazy.
to do the switch, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really crazy that they didn't, I mean, sorry, it's really crazy that they have been able to change, they have been able to adapt, they have been able to surf the wave and get even bigger, right? Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like how we do that from management like standpoint. Did somebody show up at the office one day and said, "Look, guys, we have to stop what we do. The next thing is
Right, right, right.
agentic AI, and everybody's gonna do agentic AI. So stop code completion. We change everything."
Whatever
To
you're
me,
working on right now,
exactly.
stop it.
It's working really really well, yes, but we have to do the next thing now. Thank you very
I
much.
love it. I love it. I love it.
To me that's insane, right? Like this is crazy that that they have done this move, and now they are even more successful than before, right? So I
Yeah,
think that's really crazy.
it is really
Very,
crazy. And there's
very
another
impressive.
theme here too, if you don't mind,
Yep.
because the agentic coding is one thing, but there's also a potential. So there's an investment, and we see a lot of the investments that get made in the AI space that kind of go something like this, right, Martin? Um, this reported investment of SpaceX into Cursor gives SpaceX the right at some point in the future to buy Cursor for $60 billion. But, and we've heard this theme before, right? But if they don't, if they decide to walk away, they still have to pay a $10 billion cancellation fee connected to the company's desire already just to collaborate with each other,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same thing. It's like, we're going to invest $10 billion in you no matter what. At whatever, doesn't matter valuation, we're going to give you that money no matter what. And now we bought an option included in that investment that says at some point in the future, I don't know exactly when it is, where we can acquire you for $60 billion. And it feels unlikely to me, and we'll talk about this as we go through because there's some other details here, but it feels unlikely to me that you'd invest $10 billion. And I think maybe Cerebras is like this with OpenAI, that if we give you $10 billion, we're not going to then give you another $50 billion just to
Yeah.
acquire you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if it works, it works. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. If it's worth, it worth. And plus, like, if you do this type of deal and you announce to everybody that you're gonna buy this company and all of that, it's maybe just an insurance, right, against something that could happen in the next few
Right.
months. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they really have the intent to buy the company. But I really wonder why. I really wonder what they see in Cursor. Like, what's
So can I
pushing
can I
them
can I tell
to
you?
that? Yes, yes, yes.
Can I tell you? Because here's what I think.
I'm very curious.
Say again.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
So it goes both ways. And this is why I think thematically it's actually really, really interesting. It's more than just like some companies acquiring some other company.
Tell me.
And here's the thing. XAI, which is the part of SpaceX that is the AI part of the company, is kind of lagging the rest of the industry, right?
Yes.
But the two companies that they're lagging, OpenAI and Anthropic, both have, Codex and Claude Code,
Yep.
and those are both their biggest businesses. Right? Claude Code makes more money than just the regular Anthropic's business for sure, because that's the one big use case for the LLMs that people have sort of glommed onto and said this is going to work. So that's why I think SpaceX wants to buy this.
Okay.
Because if nothing else,
Mm.
they need not code completion, but they need code, building through agentic AI.
So they are buying the harness that can work with any LLMs, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And actually, this is really interesting because there was a tweet from the from the creator of Cloud Code. What's his name again? Boris
Boris Chernin. No.
Cloud Code. Wait, let me. Boris Cherny. Yes, let me
Okay.
find the tweet. Good job, good job, good job. Today, I think it tweeted exactly what you just said. Let me find it exactly. So I don't save me stage. Where is it? Oh gee, I can't find it. But basically, if I remember correctly, he said
Hmm.
that today, Cloud Code, the harness, the platform, Codex,
Hmm.
Cursor, like this type of platform,
Yep.
are more important, are becoming more important than the
Yep.
model themselves.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
and
We
I
talked about
almost
this yesterday, right?
yes,
About
yes,
how the
yes, yes,
models
yes.
may not be the big money makers. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, yes, and they may, and so that's all he said, right? Like they are becoming more important than the model themselves. And I almost commented, I was like, that's dangerous for you guys. That's dangerous for Anthropic if the harness becomes more important, because then it means that because the harness is pretty simple to build at the end of the day, because today it's Cloud Code. Today they are very simple platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they are going to become much better over time, but like the platform that we have, my god, is like a big evolution on Cloud Code. I don't use Cloud Code because what we have built for ourselves is way better, right?
Yeah.
Because Cloud Code is in V1 and it's still not like the best version that it can be, right? But yeah, but that's the truth. Like if the orchestrator becomes more important and the LLM is less important, then it makes ton of sense for Space AI to actually acquire Cursor, which means as well that the model may be much less important, may become a commodity, and at the end of the day, this is really bad for both OpenAI and Anthropic, because if their harness is linked to the model, then as a client, you should definitely use Cursor, because at least you
Right.
have much more model valuable, right?
Right. So that
So,
was going to be the next thing that I was going to say, because there's another interesting thing going on here.
tell me.
Because the first question you asked was like, why would
Yeah.
SpaceX or XAI want to buy them? I think that's why, right? Because they
That's
need to
interesting.
have something that's more important and more profitable than their model, because their model's okay, maybe, but it doesn't matter. I think they figured out that like this programming thing is the place where all the money's going to get made, at least today, right? Because that's the first use case of the LLM, yeah?
So
That actually makes money.
this is really interesting, because when you look at that this way, like Cursor is a $20 per month price point at first, okay? That is the first plan. Then you have
Mm-mm.
$40, and then you have custom plans. So it's pretty cheap, right? Like it's not something expensive at all. I don't know if you have to pay for the model on top of that. Like for example, if I pay $20 Cursor, do I need to pay for $100 for Anthropic as well?
Probably. It would
Probably,
be weird
right?
if you did, because it would be an end around. Like, I can't imagine them going like,
Yes,
sure, you can access it for free because you pay for some other company's
yes,
harness. Like, that
yes.
makes no sense, right?
So that's why I think you would need to pay for either OpenAI or Anthropic separately, but also Cursor integrate with the Chinese open source model, and they have also launched their own version of Minimax, their own model.
So it
Like
works with
they,
Kiwi, works with Minimax, works with
yes,
Anthropic, and also
yes,
works with OpenAI, so with ChatGPT.
yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep, yep,
makes
yep. And
sense.
so, and maybe more than that, but that's the one that I know. They launched, their own like Minimax by Cursor, if you want, right?
Right.
It's like their own version of the model that is distributed through the Cursor platform. So you're right, like it just gives, like from a client standpoint, you have access to much more, right? Like you have access to, like, it's much easier to compare, it's much easier to optimize, it's much easier to switch from model to model. And if
Yep. Yep.
tomorrow, yeah, I agree, it's true, like that's probably the business that is the most flexible, right? Like, because if Claude becomes really good, then you can use Claude with Cursor. If tomorrow we have local LLM that are really good, you can use them with Cursor as well.
Mm.
So whatever happens to the LLM in the next 6 to 12 months, Cursor may actually be able to give you access to it in the most easy way, right? And
Mm.
that's true actually. Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Right. So I want to make two more points, actually. The first
Mm,
is, if you were building a business from scratch today, and I
mhm,
said to you, the amount of money you need to invest. So your timeline for actually becoming profitable you have to make a choice between running an LLM,
Mhm, mhm,
right? Or running a company like Cursor, which is standalone but does this agentic coding. You would
mhm,
definitely do Cursor
mhm, mhm, mhm,
because Cursor didn't just raise $122 billion. They're not suggesting that they're going to spend $600 billion over the next 5 years.
mhm, mhm,
They may spend $6 billion, but if they expect their revenue at the end of 2026 to be $6 billion annualizing. Do you know what I mean? So their inherent costs are so much lower, which means their path to profitability, in my mind, is so much faster. But here's the second thing, because you asked, like, why would Cursor then want to be acquired by SpaceX?
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Well, what did we talk about yesterday and the day before? What does SpaceX
Compute,
have?
compute.
Exactly. So SpaceX is filled with excess compute and not enough revenue in their AI business. And they're like, let's wave these guys in potentially,
I mean,
or let's.
if that's true, Michael, that's like golden beta. It's like crazy, crazy,
That's what
crazy
I think. That's
smart.
what I think is going on here. And again,
That's insane.
let's let the chat tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah,
But why would they buy it? Because remember, Martin, they bought an option,
yeah.
right? So they don't have to exercise that option.
Mhm.
You know what an option is, right? Think about it in the stock market. I buy an option to buy a stock at a certain to
Yes.
pay a certain price for a certain stock on a
Yeah,
certain date.
yeah.
But if the price of that stock is well below my option price or my
Mhm,
strike price on my option, I'm not going to exercise the option. I still may buy the stock,
mhm, mhm.
right? So maybe that they just have an option here and they're just going, look, as long as you use our compute, we don't care because you're going to pay us for that anyway. But if you then start to annualize, 6, 10, $12 billion a year, we'll take that revenue as well. We'll pay $60
Mhm,
billion for it because here's the thing, even at a $3 billion run rate,
mhm,
okay, what is the price to earnings ratio? I mean, no, sorry. Yeah, what's the price to earnings ratio? It's 20.
mhm.
So that's not that high.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So from a value perspective, let me just do something really quick. Apple PE. Yeah, so the forward PE ratio for Apple is approximately 36 and a half.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But you understand the point, right? So like if their
Yes.
PE ratio is 20,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
completely reasonable. It's not like an insane number.
Okay.
Now, the one thing that's really interesting about this is that it's kind of dependent on SpaceX's IPO, and it's not 100% clear to me why that's the case. But even having said that, the point here is that SpaceX wants to acquire it, or XAI wants to acquire it because they want to have a business that's actually generating revenue in the AI space. And Cursor is the fastest growing company that's ever been built in the AI space. That's not one of the model companies, right? That's
Mhm,
the first
mhm,
thing.
mhm, mhm.
The second thing is Cursor wants to do this, or would like to do it because they need the compute. This is the
Yeah.
bottleneck that we've been talking about. Every time we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about this bottleneck being the compute. They solve their problem by getting paid to do it.
Especially if they double down on their own models, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
we don't know what the number in terms of adoption of the minimals version by Cursor, right? But if it's crazy high, right? If like so many people use it, love it,
Mm.
and the deal that they have with minimals is that it's Cursor that needs to host that themselves, then they may run into the same problem as Anthropic, which is a compute problem, right? Because they need to host the models themselves to satisfy the demand that they have. And so then yes, then yeah, like let's just let's just work with with Space LCI, definitely.
Yeah, and to be fair, Cursor's already used their Composer 2.5 model,
Yeah.
and they used it on SpaceX's data center for training.
Oh really?
Yes,
Really?
they've already
Okay.
done it. Like they've rented it a
Okay.
little bit already. So, and again, they just need non-static availability for compute.
Mhm.
They need to have the confidence that as they get bigger, as they need more compute power,
Yeah.
they're not going to. They just can turn it on automatically, and that's what's going
Yeah.
to happen if they're purchased by SpaceX XAI.
I mean, that's possible that in 5 years, like SpaceX becomes absolutely massive. Huh? Like if
Yeah,
all the things that we have discussed in the last 2 days happen, which is the compute just explode, like the compute demand just explode. Second, the LLMs become a commodity, right? Like there is no more big value that comes from the LLMs themselves.
right.
And third, Cursor as the harness that can connect all the LLMs, right, and give you a very, very easy way to access whatever you want. If these three things happens, Space AI is going to be the massive winner, right? Like they would be like a private company to a multi-trillion company in such a short time, such a short time frame, right? It
Yeah.
would be pretty crazy. And yeah, I mean, it would be like really impressive bets, right, from the Space X AI
So
team.
very interesting, actually.
Mhm,
And if you now look at if you now look at all the stories that we've done in the past week or two or
mhm,
three,
mhm,
particularly as it relates to Colossus One and Colossus Two,
mhm,
you can now see a clear pattern emerging where clearly SpaceX XAI has realized that their model business, there are a few things that they're realizing here. One is why invest more and more and more insane amount of money into the model business when that's going to be the commodity? I think they figured this
mhm,
out.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Why not have an agentic code business, which is literally like the first thing that's actually working as a revenue generation generating business that's not a model?
Yeah, yeah.
And the third thing is we built all this compute and now we have nothing to do with it because no one's using our model. So either acquire a company or have a partnership with a company that's going to do that in Cursor, but then also rent it out to a company that has been slow in acquiring their own compute, and that's Anthropic. So you can see a
Mhm.
pattern forming here
For
now, right?
sure,
Which
for
actually
sure.
seems pretty smart. It seems like a low
Super
capex
smart.
way
Super
to make the
smart.
most money. No?
Super smart, definitely. Super smart. I completely agree with you. The low capex way to make the most money. I think this is definitely that, right? I think the compute bet was a safe bet. Like this one, I think was pretty easy to see. And plus, once again, Space SAI, they could win either with the model or with the compute. So there was two way to win, when you were
Yeah.
investing into data centers 5 years ago. So I think that one was safe. But the bet saying that the LLM are going to become a commodity and Cursor is going to be the business that makes the most money, as of today, it feels much more risky to me, right?
It feels
Maybe it's
risky to
true.
you.
It feels much more risky because as of today, still
As
OpenAI
of today. Sure.
and Anthropic still makes the most money, right? So maybe like because once again that they have tons of researcher, they have access to much more information that we do. So maybe actually the reason why HCI is not that good is because they didn't invest that much in because they gave up already basically, right? Maybe they saw it was too expensive, not very profitable, and maybe last year they were like, yeah, we don't believe the model business is going to be good, let's just do something else, right? So maybe they saw something in the market. Maybe they were the first one to see that and to pivot the business from the model to the compute, the infrastructure, and the harness themselves, right?
Hmm.
So as of today, it feels very risky, but maybe it felt the same as 5 years ago when they started to invest massively into space and into data centers, right? Maybe in a couple of years or a couple of months, because it grows very, very fast, we are going to be like, yeah, that's actually that was so smart to have done that like so early, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to give some of these companies the benefit of the doubt for saying,
Mhm,
here's the other thing that I think is actually really important that I think this tells us, and that is that they're making a long-term capex decision, right?
mhm, mhm.
I think they're essentially saying that the models themselves, we can use anybody's model,
Yeah.
and because Cursor is growing so fast, we don't have to spend as much. And also from a management perspective, this is the other thing that I was thinking, Martin. If I'm at Anthropic, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Or even let's go to OpenAI because they've raised so much more money.
mhm, mhm,
One, how do I spend all this money? But two is what do I focus on?
mhm, mhm.
The Codex thing seems to be working, but we have to build other products out of this large language model, right? Because now we need to figure out other ways to make money.
Yes.
But we've now committed to our own capex at a huge number, right? 100 and something billion a year to build out data centers, but also to improve our models and all this other stuff. Whereas, what does Cursor have to do?
Yeah, nothing. I mean,
Not, not, not
nothing,
nothing,
right?
but in comparison, like they
Yeah,
don't have to raise
100%.
as much money,
Yeah.
so they can focus on the one product that's already making them a ton of money. And because they don't build their own model that's not related to coding, they're I forget the name of this model that they have, Composer, yeah. So
Yep.
they have Composer, they'll have to do that, but that's not for general use.
And plus they don't do it on their own. That's a custom version of Minimatch. So they did a deal with
Yep,
Minimatch. They paid the
exactly.
Minimatch team to do that. So they're not doing this on their own neither. And once again, like, does Cursor really care if Composer doesn't work? Maybe not, because if people still use the platform with OpenAI or with Anthropic, they win as well, right?
Exactly.
So in a world where there is not enough differences in the model, and the integration between the harness and the model itself, like, there is no moat into that, right? Like, there is no like special advantage if you are cloud code with the cloud models, which I don't think should happen, right? I don't think it's in the benefit of either OpenAI or Anthropic to give special treatment to the people who use Codex or who use Cloud Code,
Yeah.
because and then because then it will give a big disadvantage to everyone who use the API or who use their own harness, like us, for example.
Right, right, right.
So I don't think it's possible to do something like that, which means Cursor is just going to work fine with everybody. And this is actually a really interesting moment in time. If that really happened this way, wow, that would be like a visionary bet to me. Like,
You like it.
crazy. Yeah, I really like it, because and it's possible. Like, it's highly possible. Highly,
It's
highly
very,
possible.
it's super possible. There's
Yeah.
there's another thing we have to talk about a little bit, right?
Tell me.
It's like the AI coding market started like as this code completion thing,
Yeah.
right? And then it moved into agentic coding.
Hmm.
But now they're going to need more compute at scale. We already talked about it a little bit. But why? Because if you think about the way that these agentic coding systems are changing, remember there was an announcement by, what was it, Cloud Code, where like they had multiple windows, which seemed like a silly thing to announce, right?
Hmm.
But they also need long context.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that seems like a weird thing to bring up, right? But if you're coding, and if you're coding agentically, like, again, as a human, you would remember, I built this other thing. So now that I'm
Yes.
building this new thing, I have to remember that other thing that I built. But that's long context, and humans are actually really good, I think, at long context. Like, we'd have a
Yeah.
scientist come on and tell me that's wrong. But I mean, I feel like I'm good at it. I presume you feel like you're good at it. No,
Much better than the agent, for sure.
that's the point, though. We're way better than the agent's like, I wonder what I did yesterday, kind of
No, no,
thing.
no, 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 no. It's much more than that. When you start a new conversation with the agent, he has no clue of what happened before.
2
So
minutes ago, yeah, exactly.
everything is and this is exactly like the main problem that we always talk about on this show, is that the way today we are doing the memory, the knowledge bases to actually get the agent to remember, is by basically just giving him back all the information that we want him to
Right.
remember. We just write everything into a book, and every time we give the book to the agent and we say to him, read this first, and then we are going to work, right? And every time there's something new, we add one more line to the book. When we go back to the agent, read the book first, and then let's do some work, right? Which is so inefficient. So that's okay, because we don't have a solution for it, right? And we do this because we want to enjoy agentic coding right now. We don't want to wait for a better way to handle the memory. So that's why
Right.
I guess it's okay, just because we are very early in the technology, but it's super inefficient, right? So that's why, like, when we need to do LLM v2, right? And maybe this is where you're probably gonna have way more fine tuning, way more, like, a very different way to handle context and all of these things. And yes, you're right. Maybe that's gonna require much more compute, right? So
It will. It will. It will.
yeah.
It definitely will. And look, this is one of the things that we talked about yesterday. I think it was on ATP first, but then we followed on with AGTP when we had our guest on. And this idea of like, does anybody even really know what all this stuff costs, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
but the one thing we do know for sure is we know what it costs in relative terms,
yeah.
if that's fair. You know what I mean, right? In other words,
Mhm.
compared to something else that we already understand,
Yes,
we know it's more than that.
yes.
So,
Mhm.
what is the more thing that I'm talking about? If you think about a typical SaaS platform, you roll it out, you kind of know what your embedded costs are. You know that up until a certain point on a specific machine that you're running, how much compute that machine has, and how many customers you can actually run on that machine, right? So you can then understand, what's my margin, because I know that the marginal client put onto that server doesn't add any more expense to me because I've already paid for that thing. It
Yes.
just adds marginal revenue. And then when that gets full, I can spin up another server. I'm simplifying, right, to make a point, but then I can spin up another
Mhm.
server.
Mhm.
But the agentic stuff, you don't know because my agent may do something completely different than your agent. You may be running a multi-agent implementation. I may be running just one agent, right? So this idea that like we know what the compute's going to cost in the same way that we do for SaaS is
It's going to take more
anathema to
time.
this. Go ahead.
It's going to take more time. We need more data. We need more time. Once again,
Sure, sure, sure.
agent CGI as a whole is 6 months old, right? So
Yes,
nobody
I'm not saying
knows.
we'll never know, but I'm just saying we
Yeah,
don't know
no.
today.
Today there is no way. Today there is no way. You can see some stuff, but right now I think to me like the largest barrier to entry is just the education. It's really hard to implement agentic AI into your business, into your workflows, into your company at the
Yeah.
level that like the guys from Cursor does, or the people like the super smart CTO of
Mm.
Undercover Media does. Like it's a very high level of agentic understanding, I would say, right?
I don't think anybody has a better understanding of agentic
Yes.
programming than the CTO. That dude's amazing of
Of
Undercover
course.
Media.
But it's really hard. It's really hard to get there. And I think this is where the problem is right now, is like,
Mm.
how do I get there? That's why like this idea of having the FDEs, the forward deployed engineer, is such a great idea, because we can help with the education. Which means my point is that we are really far from the point of everybody use agentic AI at the fullest. So which means some people are still using it a very little bit because they don't know yet well how to use it at the fullest.
Yep.
So which means even if you think right now you have some data around agent AI usage, you are completely wrong, because everything is going to increase way more. First, because you are going to have more clients, but
Yep.
also because each one of your clients will become better and will use more, right? So
By
it just
definition, yeah.
it's not like a SaaS where there is 10 buttons and that's it, right? So like very quickly your users hit the maximum that they can do. But
Mm.
here with agentic AI, we are so far away, like so far away,
So far away. Yeah,
like
'cause it's
so far
early,
away.
as you said.
Yes,
It's early, right?
it's so early and it's really hard to adopt it. And so we are so far from everyone being able to get the most out of this tech, even if it stays as it is now, right? So
Mm.
without any new development, it would still take years for people to really catch up and to really be able to build the most, like the best processes, use AI agents 24/7 across plenty of departments. Like this is hard to just orchestrate and just
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the system, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so that's why, like, even if a company deploy agents tomorrow, they don't do it at the fullest yet. So which means if this is going to explode. So which means if you are Anthropic or OpenAI, you have no clue about what's the usage of agentic AI per client.
Right.
No clue at all.
And you mentioned this, but I just want to say this explicitly because I was
Mm,
thinking about this too. If company A signs up for
mm,
just like Salesforce, right? So they're using a
mm.
SaaS platform.
Yeah,
If they have 1,000 employees,
mm,
they're not going to run more than 1,000 instances
exactly.
of
There's
Salesforce.
there's t- 10 buttons. There's maybe like, I don't know, a
But
thousand
al- but
companies with a
also
CRM per person.
their Salesforce usage, and I'm just using
Yeah.
Salesforce as a proxy for all
Mm,
SaaS
mm,
implementations, right?
mm.
Is not going to increase by like 100% unless they
Exactly.
hire another 1,000 people.
Exactly. Because there's
But
not
on
that
the
much
agentic
potential.
side, you
It
could
can
that
run.
same company A could be like, I'm going to do now all of my agentic stuff with Salesforce,
Now that's a different story.
and it could quadruple like overnight.
Exactly. That's
That's
exactly
the
my
point I was
point.
trying to make. Same platform,
Yeah,
same thing, but like now
it can.
you're not constrained by the number of employees you have. Now you're constrained by just your creativity
Yeah, and the
and how you
knowledge.
employ your agents. Yeah.
Yes, and the knowledge that you have, right? Like if tomorrow you discover that cron exists, for example, right? Like just something very stupid, but if you
Yep.
just
Yep.
go from asking the agent via chat, do that, right? And then you learn what is a cron, and you automate your agent to just do it on the cron in a loop every 5 minutes
Right.
to 24/7, you've just 10x your usage, right? It's
Right.
just one little tech implementation, right? And
Exactly.
this type of example, there are plenty, and it's really, really, really hard to get to be so optimized, which at the end of the day 10x the usage, which is not possible
No.
with the SaaS, because it's too limited. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
And is
think it's
that,
gonna be interesting.
I think it's gonna be super interesting. There's one other thing we have to talk about, right?
Tell me.
And we have to just kind of synthesize this down to its important parts.
Oh my God.
Microsoft also runs with GitHub Copilot as a automated coding engine, yeah?
Yes.
OpenAI's Codex, that's 2.
Yeah.
Google has Anti-Gravity and Gemini developer tools, that's 3.
Hmm.
Anthropic Cloud Code, yeah?
Hmm.
And now Cursor.
Yes.
So that's 5.
Yeah.
We know that most of these things are going to end up being a duopoly, or at the most part, 3 companies.
Hmm. Hmm.
So someone's not going to have a chair to sit in at some point. And I think this is one of the other reasons why Cursor itself, as sort of a one platform,
True. Good point.
would want to merge, because maybe they felt a little bit vulnerable just being independent.
Oh, okay. I see it another way. Maybe I see it from the client point of view. It's way more likely as a client that we end up in a situation where we use more than one provider than a situation where we use just one provider. I think it's,
Wait a second.
yeah.
Tell me why you think that's the case, and tell me what kind of company you think would do that. But go ahead.
So, for example, a very large company like Another Media, um, at some
Yeah.
point we may be willing to pay for both Anthropic and OpenAI, either because OpenAI and Anthropic are good at different things, and so we want to use both on different tasks, or because every 3 months the best model always change, and so we just want to have the flexibility to go back and forth. And so if we are in a situation where the clients like to pay for multiple models, and plus then we
Right.
can add in the mix probably some open source way cheaper models that can do
Mhm.
the recurring tasks that are simple, and then to make them super cheap, right? If we get to that level of optimization, like a multi-level architecture, sorry, a multi-model architecture,
Mhm.
then Cursor is going to beat them all, because this is exactly what they do, right? Like they give you access to everybody in a very simple way, right?
So let
So
me give you my
yeah,
opinion on this.
tell me.
IT departments inside of
Mhm,
big companies
mhm.
are like what I would call technology overlords.
It's
And
true.
a company as huge as Undercover Media is
Mhm, mhm.
has remained, luckily, frankly, due to this just like deep intelligence of its founders,
And the
very
CTO
agile.
and the CFO like always
And the
people.
CFO, unbelievable. Did we say that already? CFO, unbelievable. But it remains very agile.
Yes.
And the decision-making process inside a company like Undercover Media is pretty immediate.
Mhm, mhm,
Right. The people that run the company can get together pretty quickly and say, let's do this, let's do that. And as long as it makes sense, they'll do it.
mhm, mhm.
But inside a big institution, Martin, the reality is that like you cannot keep switching technologies every few months, regardless of whether one gets better than the other. So you have to make a choice, because getting it installed and then
This,
getting it
yeah,
involved in
implemented.
security and all this other stuff and
Yeah,
all the
true.
cyber shit that's going on,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
can't keep changing. First of all, your employees will lose their minds
mhm.
because they won't know what to do.
Yeah, nice, true.
And
Absolutely
all the
smart.
stuff that they've been working on, which was written by this thing, whatever,
Changes. Mhm.
changes to now I have to do this thing, and you don't know what's going to break because you don't know what the relationship is.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that a big company is just going to make a commitment to one platform,
Anthropic or
whatever it
OpenAI.
is, or OpenAI or Cursor, whichever one it is, and they're going to run with it for a while.
Mhm, mhm,
They're not just going to keep switching, because fundamentally they're not built to do that.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
And that, I think, is where the potential for Cursor to feel a little bit vulnerable. And part of the reason why, again, is like it's this 6 of one, half dozen of another thing, in the sense that because they have one really, really great product, they can focus on it really well.
Mhm, mhm.
But the problem is that if they don't get enough traction, and if people say, well, that's great, but they're using the model. Do you remember we talked about closeness and proximity to the model?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So Codex at some level and Anthropic at Claude Code at some level could be better because they're closer to the model.
Maybe, yeah. If they
Maybe, I don't
decide,
know.
yeah, yeah. But as of
And
today,
competitively, they could
yeah.
restrict somebody's access to that model.
Mm.
And then what happens? So maybe what Cursor's thinking is we need to have access to our another model, even if it's not the best model out there,
Just in case.
just in case. And that's another reason why they're doing this just strategically.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes ton of sense. Which, once again, super smart, right? Super smart, looking, right? Like they are trying to plan
Yeah, yeah.
for the future. They are trying to either make the most money and or at the same time hedge the risk, right?
Mhm.
That they have against their business. So yeah, no, makes ton of sense. Makes ton of sense. And let's see in a couple of years how that goes. But it's possible that in a couple of years we look back at it and say, "Wow, this was super smart. They were ahead. They were ahead."
It feels like that already, though, doesn't it? I don't know.
I as of today, the models are still great themselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
We get to see how that evolves, right? We get to see how that evolves, how the open source models are going to evolve as well. Are we do like how the hardware is going to evolve as well? Are we going to be able to run local models ourselves? There's a lot of questions that still need answer before we can say that the LLMs become a commodity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're not there yet, but there's a lot of people who are working towards that. So let's see how it goes.
Okay, let's talk about some more technology, Martin.
Let's do it.
AMD's CEO, Lisa Su,
Hmm.
is quoted as saying that AI infrastructure is moving. We'll get to some details in a second, but it's moving from a GPU only story
Hmm.
to a full system. And we've kind of been hinting at this for a while, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like the first build out for all these big, large language models, and we talked to Dari about this on Sunday this week, was like just very GPU intensive.
Yes.
How many GPUs can I get?
Mm.
And
Because
that was
they
driving all of the development, particularly for the training. Sorry, go ahead for all the large
because
language models. Yeah,
because there were zero GPUs in the hyperscalers. That's why like they went from super high like they went from zero supply to super high demands, right?
yeah, exactly.
So but they had the storage and they had the CPUs as well to already run the server. So that was fine, right? But the GPUs they were not ready for it at all, like zero.
Right, and in the current configuration, because most of what was happening over the past couple of years was just like model training. It just
Mhm,
was, right?
mhm,
But the next phase of this, and we've talked about this a lot, is inference,
mhm,
reasoning, and agentic AI, and those three things take a lot more CPU orchestration,
mhm.
memory movement, networking, storage, and that's all the stuff that CPUs do. So
Yeah.
right now, apparently, I want to get this stuff. I want to get the data on this just to make sure that I have this. Yeah. So according to Lisa Su, the current ratio between GPU to CPU is 4 to 5 GPUs for one CPU.
Okay.
So CPUs had enough power to be able to handle what like 4 or 5 GPUs were doing
Okay.
because of the tasks that they were handling.
Mhm, mhm.
But as those tasks become more complex and require, like I said, more orchestration, more memory movement, more networking, all the stuff that CPUs do, well, now that ratio she expects to go from 5 or 4 to 1 to 1 to 1. So
Oh
what
wow.
does that mean for demand for CPUs?
4x, 5x.
Yeah, or let's just say 3.5, whatever it is.
Mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
the one thing we can say for sure without knowing what the exact number is it's going to go up,
Yep.
right? And we also know that there are constraints out there. So she's also already saying that the global CPU market is tighter than expected by definition,
Mhm,
and that demand is significantly higher than it has been in the past, and higher than AMD, which is a proxy for the whole industry.
mhm, mhm,
And she says this is driven by this AI inference and agentic AI workloads.
mhm. That's interesting because AMD they make really good chips at scale already,
Yeah,
and they are like
yeah,
one
yeah.
of the biggest supplier of the gaming space, right? So they know how to
Yep,
make really fast stuff, right? That works
exactly.
at the highest level because gaming is one of the hardest things that you can power today. So yeah, so which means like they know what they're doing, right? They know what they are doing.
Yeah,
And she has access to like massive data. She knows exactly what the market is demanding, right? So Yeah, I would definitely believe what she says. Yeah,
But the other thing she's saying is it's not a short-term spike.
yeah, no, for sure.
But it's interesting. The more I think about this, right, Martin, the more I think like, okay, what about the wafer chips that Cerebrus is building? What is the relationship between that and the number of CPUs? This is not being addressed here, right? This is just GPU related. If we believe, this is why it's so interesting to me, right? Because if we believe there's going to be an architectural change
Mhm.
in the way that the chips that are running the inference, that are running all this stuff, do you know what I mean, are going to change,
Mhm.
then what does that mean for the CPU market? We're going to have to follow this space a little bit more to figure out. But in the
Yeah,
current environment, right, where what the GB200 and then I believe they're called like Rubin chips that NVIDIA is developing for inference, they're still going to need more CPUs.
yeah.
And let's just for some statistics, AMD's data center business is already showing this in real time. In Q1 2026, AMD reported $5.8 billion in data center revenue, up a good 57% year over year.
Okay.
Okay. So
Wow.
it's not like
Okay.
she's just thinking this is going to happen. And they've raised their view of this of the server CPU market. They reported that AMD increased its expected server CPU market growth rate from 18 again to the headline number we reported already, 35%. So it's just like this demand is just like spiking higher.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not just AMD because NVIDIA also makes CPUs
Yes.
and their own CPU, and they're increasingly integrated into the GPUs that they make because it makes sense, right? And they're also seeing increased demand for their stuff as well.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
What are we doing?
But once again, like let's see how it goes. Let's see how it evolves. But in 10 years, is it going to be the market that makes the most money? We don't know, right? There is more and more competition. But also, like what's really interesting to me is that it looks like a lot of people are trying to do different things on the chip side, right?
Tell me.
Like they are not trying to make the same thing cheaper
No,
or more
no,
efficient. They are
no.
trying they are challenging the architecture itself, right? Like they are saying, hey, what about we do something completely different? Hey, what about we try this thing, right? And so, which means it's also maybe very, very risky for the incumbent like AMD or Intel or Nvidia, because
Yep.
if somebody finds something that's better, right? Like that's pretty much
Right.
what happened to Apple, right? They were
Yeah.
like, we are just going to do something different, and it's working
Right.
much, much, much better as of today, right? It's really, really hard to be more efficient than the M chips. They are just amazing. They work just so nicely, right? So that's why it opens the door to innovation, which is always a bit scary, I think, for the large companies like AMD or Intel.
Mm. So the other question here is like, who's going to win out of this, right? That's the thing that people are always
Mhm.
trying to figure out is like, who's going to
Yeah.
win?
Hmm.
We haven't even spoken about Intel at all.
Yeah. But
Do you
it's
find it
also,
weird, Martin, that in the context of all the chip conversations we've been having in the past, let's just say 6 months,
yeah.
no one's ever mentioned Intel?
I think there was some news a couple of days ago, but nothing that we covered, so maybe not something like super, super, super important. But yeah, and Intel doesn't look like they're on top of the conversation. No? It feels to
It's
me that
it's
it's
weird,
either,
right?
yeah, it feels to me that it's either Cerberus or Nvidia that dominates the AI chips narrative. These two companies, I think, right now gets a lot of traction about AI, and that's pretty much it. Huh?
There's a part of me that feels like Intel is like this old-fashioned company that's kind of lost in the wilderness where everybody else is running forward really fast and they're just still at a cocktail party somewhere talking about the old days. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like an old brand to
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I don't know what they do. That do they do like Intel Jamie?
I don't
Like
know. That's the thing. And I used to follow Intel really, really closely. So I would have been able to tell you. I watched their, 20, 30 years of development at Intel, and now I'm just not 100% sure what their edge is.
yeah.
They must benefit, right? Because they do make CPUs,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
they probably make more CPUs than AMD, but it's weird that no one's really talking about it. I'm sure they, like, from a server perspective, they're powering a lot of
Yeah.
server CPUs and their big CPU supplies to server farms and stuff like that. But it's just like they don't seem to be involved. Like, think about it. Jensen Huang,
Mhm.
right? Runs NVIDIA. I used to know like 15 or 20 years ago who ran Intel. It was a big deal actually who the CEO of Intel was.
Mhm.
I can't tell you off the top of my head, and you can see my hands are in the air, so I'm not searching for it. I don't know. I'm sure I can figure it out pretty quickly. But that's how influential Intel was. And to be fair, I believe AMD is still licensing the technology from Intel,
Maybe.
which makes this whole thing really interesting. You know, the one thing that we can and cannot really talk about is that like a lot of the chip manufacturing at some level runs through Taiwan.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And again, this is
Yeah.
not a politics show in the same way it's not a stock market show. But you just have to try to figure out like what is the bottleneck of Taiwan going to be going forward.
Yeah. Yes. This is also a real question, right? But it feels like to me it's like the constant threat. This question, like what's gonna happen to Taiwan? So what's gonna happen to the chip? I feel like it's been always here, always the threat. Maybe it's more and more every year, but it feels to me like it's been always here. No.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my entire life we've always been thinking about like what is China going to do with Taiwan and what's the
Mhm.
US response going to be and blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
So I don't have an answer for you there, but I do think it's something that needs to be monitored and because the geopolitical world is changing more today than it's ever changed, at least in my lifetime.
Mhm.
I mean, I
Mhm.
was alive when Vietnam was going on, but I wasn't sentient. Do you know what I mean? I didn't understand back in the day. So I can't comment on that. But what's happening today is just really, really different.
Mhm.
But it gets back to this idea. So think about this, Mark. We always talk about how, because before we get to our guests, I just want to talk about the cost associated with it. And remember, we talked yesterday about profitability. Do we
Yes.
know what all this stuff costs? This is just another monkey wrench in here, right? Because GPUs are constrained, data centers are constrained, right? You saw the activity. We already talked about Cursor, potentially,
Yes.
not potentially, but partnering with Space XAI. And the reason why was because they need compute. So you see all these little moving puzzle pieces.
Mhm.
And now we have CPUs going, we're going to grow 35%, but they're going to get more expensive as well. And now you have to not reimagine, but you have to reevaluate what everything's costing
Yeah.
so that then you can properly, as a model provider, you can properly then price so you can properly make a profit at some point in the future. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the big
It's
question,
another
right?
thing that's changing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's the big question, right? So that's the big question. How is that going to play out? How is that going to turn out? There's a lot of question right now.
Yeah,
There's
because,
a, yeah,
and remember, the best business environments are filled with what I call
yeah.
predictability.
So that's why like the only thing that's sure to me that's predictable are the data centers. Like if you want something that is going to be a safe bet, I think only the data centers or the power then next is going to be the next this situation.
Ah, you mean from a profitable business standpoint?
Yes. Like
No,
if
no,
you
no. I completely agree with you.
yeah, if you want predictability, like which business is the most likely going to be bigger in 5 years, right? I
Right.
think the data centers and the power of all the extra electricity that we are going to to, to use, they are the most predictable to me.
Well, because that's where all the inputs go. I mean, to be
Yes,
fair, right? Even the chip market can die if there's no data center
exactly.
market, right? But if there's
And if there's too much competition as well, or too much innovation, right? Like
right,
once again, in 6 months, in 12 months, the Chinese are going to be on the market, right? Michael, this is going to be a huge deal. Huh? This is going
you're
to
talking about in the chip market.
yes. In the cheap markets, like now we are talking like massive competition, huh? Because the cool thing with the data centers is that it protects against international competition because every company wants to have data sovereignty, right?
Exactly.
So there will
Exactly.
always be a domestic market for the data centers, always, right? And so in countries like the US or like Japan, for example, like that are really big economies, if you build a data center, someone is going to use it at some point,
Right,
right?
right.
So
Right.
it's
Undercover data centers.
exactly, we should build data
It's in
centers,
the it's on
Michael.
the roadmap, right?
It's on the roadmap.
Is
The
the CFO
CFO
planning this? Have
hasn't
we invested
approved
in
it,
this at
but
all or no?
he didn't approve the budget yet. It's a bit high.
He
It's
didn't
not.
approve the budget yet. What are we doing?
But yeah, no, like it's like so it really protects the market. Like just in Europe where we don't know what they are doing. But in
Mm.
China, in the US, and in Japan, and in all of these big economies, if you build data centers, you are going to be fine. But the chips is very different, right? Like today, they can't really sell the NVIDIA chip in China, but this is just a little bump on the road, right? Like this is going to get back to normal at some point because Huawei can build their own chip, or because they are going to start selling again. Um, so chips can be globally competitive, right? And you start to have too many players, that can be a big threat, I think, to the chip market. So let's see
Yeah, and
how it goes, but
I want to make another point about the data centers because you know in your mind you say that that looks like the most obvious place, the most stable, the most
yeah.
predictable business, and I agree with you. I think you're right
Mhm.
because you can't do any of this stuff without a big enough sort of data center business or data center
Yeah.
infrastructure. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we're going to need more compute, not less. And it doesn't matter. Again, this is Jevon's paradox as well, right? It doesn't matter how efficient all the chips get and all this other stuff gets. The more efficient it gets, the more we're going to use it more.
Yeah.
So it's not going to go away. But here's the interesting part about this to me, Martin.
Tell me.
7 or 8 years ago, I told you I was pitched by a bunch of foreign companies. I'd say like three or four to
Mhm.
build data centers, not just in Thailand but in the whole region. It just seemed really unsexy at the time. It's just like it's a data center, which is a bunch of racks with a bunch of concrete and some air conditioning. Like, what are we doing here?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's what it felt like. And to be fair, in a way, that's the way they were pitching it. They
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
pitching it as like we're going to need massive megawatts or
In
even
5 years.
terawatts of.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't say AI is going to come out in
No,
5 years. We're gonna be like crazy in need of data centers. We need to
no,
start building right now.
no. But that's why I wanted to point it out because
Yeah.
it seems to us we can see whatever that short term future is, and that short term future is if I had to bet on something,
Mhm. Mhm.
I would definitely make a bet on data centers, but it wasn't always that obvious. That was kind of the point that I wanted to make is that like it was pitched. And I did actually try to help a couple of these companies raise some money. And back then it wasn't, billions of dollars. It was probably 10 million or 12 million or 20 million bucks just to build these things, right? And get them connected to the grid.
Mhm.
And it was in Thailand.
Mhm. Mhm.
And to be fair, it was in Malaysia and Borneo as well. But I'm just saying, but now people are scurrying around trying to figure out like where's the land. I need to build my data center right away. And Google, we already talked about this. Google and Microsoft are investing huge sums of money, both in I think it was $1 billion in Thailand and $10 billion in Japan. Not all of this related to AI, some of it related to physical data centers as well, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that was just one thing that I wanted to point out because in the context of like data centers today seem like a real, like almost like a layup
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
of
Yep.
business. If you have
Yeah.
one, you'll make money kind of thing. Whereas, like I said, 7 or 8 years ago, or 6 or 7 years ago, it's more like, I don't know, what do we need these things for? And it's pretty unsexy. Let somebody else run this business kind of thing.
I think that's because we are not so much connected to the AI business, but back 6 years ago,
I
right?
definitely wasn't.
Like we were not, so much exposed, right?
Mm,
And the media was not following the news every day at that time, right? So it was
not in
hard
the
to
same
get
way
the
for sure.
information. So so I think and so that's why I think like people like Elon Musk who had access to the development of AI, who could see the growth and the potential and all of these things, it was definitely much easier for them to invest massively in data centers at that time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is really interesting because if the people pitching you were pitching somebody like Elon Musk, he would be like, guys, you really underestimate massively
Exactly,
what
exactly,
we need. We don't need
exactly.
two for 20 million. We need 20. We need 100 of what you want to do, right? So maybe they also didn't have access to the information and they were not pitching the correct way and the
Yeah,
correct people
maybe.
as well, right?
Exactly,
Because to
exactly.
me, it looks like they were people, and Elon Musk was one of them, and is one of them who could foresee the growth of AI, who could say, okay, 6 years ago, AI is going to work. We are going to launch it. People are going to use it. So let's invest massively into data centers right now, right? And that's why we
Exactly.
talk so much about SpaceX AI right now,
Mm,
because they made this massive investment a while back, which AWS did not do, which Google did not do,
mm,
which Microsoft Azure did not do neither, right? For Microsoft, it's interesting because they invested into OpenAI, so they hoped, they bet that it would work, but they didn't build the compute capacity in case it works, basically. So,
Yeah,
s-
and I do think that this look, we spent a lot of time talking about it on this show. This
mhm,
the way that like OpenAI is derisive towards Anthropic for not building enough compute
mhm.
power.
Yes,
And it just kind of feels like, at least in the short to medium term, they're going to be correct.
it looks like they are definitely going to be correct, and also SpaceX AI is super correct, right? I'm
Yeah,
very impressed. Yeah, I'm very very impressed by what they are doing.
it feels
It's
like it.
to me. So that's why let's see. Let's see how it evolves in the next few years, maybe, right?
Yeah,
Just like more like
6 months at least, right? Because a
yearly
lot of these deals that we're
conversation.
talking about right now are going to get consummated in the next like 6 months, 6 to 8 months. Yeah,
Yes, 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 yes,
they're all
yes.
going to close, and it'll be interesting to see like how all these details fall out. But I feel like there's a small number of companies that are all kind of jockeying with each other for compute, for chips,
Mm.
for model, for coding, and stuff like that. But I will say this: I do think we need another model.
You think we need another model?
Another
You mean
model meaning,
another business model?
yeah, another business model to come out,
Mm,
like again, to just be ejected out of the LLMs in the same way that the coding was.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's true that right now it's really oriented towards coding the developer experience and making the building things, like making building softwares easier and faster, right?
yeah,
Outside of coding, there is not a lot of use cases with agentic AI. There is not
no,
a lot as of today,
as of
right?
today.
I mean, we say coding, but it's really like building softwares, right?
Yeah,
So
sorry,
it
building
can
things,
be like
building software. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
building software. So it's not only coding, but a lot of it is definitely coding, right?
Mm,
So yep, we have Ankur who just joined us.
awesome.
Hello, how
How
are
are
you?
you? Awesome. It's great to have you.
Perfect. Can you hear us? Can you see us? All good? Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Let me add you to the live with us. Give me a second. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Perfect. Here you are. Welcome to the live.
Okay, let's do this thing, Martin.
Yes. Good.
Okay, Anchor, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Where are you based, just for me?
San Francisco Bay Area.
Awesome. Why did I even ask? I should have just known that off the top of my head. It's nice to have you here. Look, we wanted to have you on, right? Because we wanted to kind of get a better understanding about how AI native security will help enterprises safely deploy agentic AI systems without losing control, like kind of across the board, but the data, the decisions that get made, and the automated actions. And to be fair, we've spent a ton of time saying, like, as agents sort of, get more and more created, what are we doing on the security side? So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on. But before we get into it, why don't you tell a little bit about the important work that Stryker does to our audience so they can get some context? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, it's pleasure to meet you, and excited for this conversation.
Thank you.
Co-founder and CEO of Stryker. We are a startup based in San Francisco Bay Area, focusing on securing agentic AI. We primarily work with large financial companies, healthcare, technology companies, and safely deploying agents.
Is it, from your perspective, is that the sector where it's interesting to me, right? 'Cause you said healthcare, not super heavily regulated, but still regulated, and financial services companies. If you split it into like banks and insurance, if you just look at it as FIS, also heavily regulated. How fast are they, and how ready are they, do you think, to actually adopt agentic AI? Before we get to the security side of it, it's just interesting to me that that's the place where this is going to happen first.
Yeah, look, I've been in technology for the last 20 years. I've seen the internet, the mobile, cloud era, and now AI.
Yeah.
And my observation consistent has been that the rate of technology adoption continues to shrink, whereas it took banks like a decade to adopt cloud and
Right.
container technologies. It's now taking less and less time for these institutions to adopt new technology because the pressures top down, board and CEO level. And we're certainly seeing this in healthcare, where entire systems are getting rebuilt or redesigned with AI in mind. Same thing with banking. As always, technology industry is at the forefront. So our customers we talk to are with the tech background, but just about every industry vertical, including the highly regulated industry vertical, they've hired heads of AI to initiate the transformation. And the good news is that we have some regulations in the US, but it's not overbearing. I think there are some broad guidelines, but by and large, these enterprises are able to move quickly.
Which is a good thing to have. You mentioned, you kind of hinted at this idea that some of these systems, I presume you mean the legacy systems, are actually getting rebuilt. Can you just qualify that a little bit more, if you don't mind? Like, are big institutions actually sitting there saying, if we are going to deploy agentic AI, our legacy systems per se are not necessarily built to handle that. So we need to rebuild this stuff, which they can probably do, as you said, more quickly than they could have done or even would have done 10 years ago. So they can then start implementing agentic AI at scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does, yeah. So, like, look, if you look at the previous technology transformation, before I get to your questions, like something like cloud, which was more of an infrastructure play, removing data centers, but it was never a business driver per se.
No.
If you look at AI, the leaders are clearly seeing that as a business driver. They can grow top line revenues, reduce cost, and you're seeing some of that stuff, unfortunately. I tend to believe that we're going to have more people doing a lot more things with this AI as the enabler. The rewrite is required because if you've got really old systems written in old school languages, up until now, you never had the luxury to do this redo. Now with AI writing code itself, like all you need to describe is a intent. What do you want to do? So the leaders, the humans can sort of focus on the higher order bit that delivers value to the customer. And the how piece, the software and coding part of it is now taken care of. So it's one of the best technology transformation that these industries are seeing, and the gap between the haves and have-nots will unfortunately only widen. The enterprises who move quickly and embrace it with open arms are going to be taking advantage of this.
It's funny, you saw me smile when you said old-fashioned languages, and my brain just translated that directly into COBOL. I don't know if that's what you meant or not, but that's what my brain translated it into.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm old enough to remember 8085 and 8086 microprocessor programming.
So am I. Okay, let's talk about security. When you're talking to these big enterprises that we were just discussing, how are they thinking about, because things are moving really fast, right? And I remember, like, as you said, I remember seeing big technology shifts, big implementations, and security was never one of the things that we were thinking about. But today it seems to be top of mind. But I'm curious how leading enterprises are thinking about security as they start adopting these agentic systems.
So the leaders are, not deploying agents; they are rather hiring them. And you don't hire anyone without a background check, a job description, and a way to fire them. So agents are literally being treated as employees. Stop treating them like a software and start treating them like employees with identity, scope of work, etc. And they're asking two important questions. First is, does it work? Does it deliver value? You can get to a prototyping phase very quickly, but is it actually delivering some value? And then the second question they're asking is, do these agents stay in the lane? So, at this moment in time, as it pertains to security, the important question that the CISOs are asking is, they're building a discovery muscle. How many agents do I have? I was talking to a CISO and they said, like, we discovered 50x more agents than he had thought of. They discovered 50,000 agents within their enterprise.
And they thought they had 1,000.
And they had no idea. Exactly. And they had no idea, like, where they came from. And so the pattern's consistent. They're all asking, like, look, we got to measure before we deploy, contain before you scale, and never give an agent a permission you wouldn't give to a human equivalent.
Exactly. Can I ask you another question? How are they reflecting to the fact that their institutions think they have 1,000 agents, but they have 50,000 agents. Is there some sort of guidance? Not that's not the right word. Guardrail problem internally where they're just giving too many people access to being able to set up an agent, and if they're treating them, because I agree with you, I think that agentic AI, these agents should be treated like employees. To be fair, I think they should be giving an employee number so they can be
Yeah.
tracked. I do though. It's so they can be tracked in the same way that an employee can be tracked. I don't know if they should go through some HR process per se, but it feels like it should be necessary in the context of, like you said, you wouldn't hire an employee without doing a security check, and you would also want that human employee to stay in a lane. But now that you have NHIs, right, non-human identities inside your enterprise, should they have to go through that whole range of sort of onboarding, hiring, getting an employee number and stuff like that, so they can be treated more and more like an employee, and then be sort of set up with security goals around them so they can't go out of their lane, as you said?
Yeah, you would think so, but what happens in reality is that unlike humans, where humans get hired and onboarded tops down, technology adoption is almost always bottoms up. What happens is that you have groups of people who experiment with your Cloud Code, OpenClaw. They experiment with a lot of agentic tools themselves. They look like heroes in front of the leadership. Leadership encourages them to do more and more of that.
Right.
And I think it's a good thing, right? Technology adoption has to be bottoms up. If there is a mandate to do something or not to do something, those things tend to not work as well, especially in technology industry. So a big part of the challenge that these CISOs have is that just people are organically bringing the agents that they like. The good news is that we are now at a stage where most CISOs are and CIOs are treating their roles as the enablers of agents. So if they discover that there are these agents available, they just want to create walled gardens around them.
Right.
So basically, hey, like if you really like Cursor or Claude or Gemini, pick your favorite. Okay, well, we'll centralize it, we'll buy it. So you can use it all you want. And that's a good thing, because otherwise the leaders would have no idea what technology to buy licenses for unless they really learn bottoms up what's actually being used.
Right. So this is interesting to me as well. Look, I haven't had a job at a big institution in a while. I would say a decade and a half.
Good for
And
you.
that's not what I meant. But my point was, I feel a little bit ignorant about the way that technology departments are making decisions. And one of the conversations that Martin and I were having before you joined was that one of the things I said to him was that when I was working at Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, there would have been no way that we could have implemented Claude Code, Codex, and Cursor in the same environment, because there was no way that they could have managed all three of those services, and then the code output would be different, and how would all that get managed? But you're suggesting to me that that's no longer the case. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. As a matter of fact, like some of these banks that you mentioned, which either they're a customer or we're working with them,
Right.
have explicitly said that, like, look, we're going to have a bunch of divisions experiment with multiple tools,
Interesting.
because in a highly dynamic environment where things are changing every week, it's hard to pick a winner. If you'd
Yep.
asked me this time last year, I would have said like GitHub Agent for coding has won already,
Sure.
given Microsoft's reach and distribution.
Copilot. Yeah.
I can say the same thing today. Cloud Code is clearly the leader. And I'm starting to hear that Codex from OpenAI is gaining steam as well within the enterprise.
Right.
So you're better off, right now doing annual deals with these enterprises, buy a bunch of licenses, see which ones work. And I think that's the right approach. It seems chaotic. I think it's an organized chaos where you're allowing these teams some autonomy to decide what they want before signing a multi-year contract with any one winner. It's hard to pick one at this point.
Yeah, it super is. And you're right in a way, right? Because when I was working at Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, like there was no alternative really to like Microsoft, Windows really for a big
Yeah,
enterprise. And there was nothing like we had to use Microsoft Office. Like that wasn't a choice. I couldn't bring like a Macintosh in and just go, can we please plug this into the network? Because it didn't run any of the trading systems that we needed. So fair enough. And you're right, now it's just way more flexible, way more agile, but also way more fast paced, I think, if that's fair. Yeah.
it is.
So can you talk to me a little bit about what makes AI native security just fundamentally different than traditional enterprise security in the way that I would have known it.
Yeah. So in traditional security, the threat is outside of the building. In AI security, the threat is on the payroll. What do I mean by that
Mm,
is typically in the traditional security, you're trying to get an adversary out of your house. So you have network security controls and endpoint security controls to ensure that nobody can get to your environment. But like we just discussed, the agents that are running in your environment have complete autonomy. And like I said, like they have access to the entire enterprise operating system, as we say it. That means the entire supply chain, the data set, the infrastructure, because everything that the agent needs access to will have access to it. So what the malicious actor needs to do now is to just plant a bug in one of these agents and have it do a harmful thing. And threat actors, if they can, why would they use sophisticated techniques if they can use English to
right.
fool these agents into doing something really bad?
Right.
Because attackers always look at the easiest path. So now you have a adversary that's sitting inside thousands and hundreds of thousands of them. As a matter of fact, I believe that half the enterprises within a few years will be run on agents. And if I'm a bad actor, whether I'm an insider bad actor or from somebody from outside, all I got to do is just plant a bug, give agents an instruction in English to do something really, really harmful. And the enterprises, quite honestly, are just not prepared with a kill switch. And I can talk about like a few areas that enterprises can immediately do. But like once these agents are operating at an autonomous level, it's kind of like Tesla. Once you get used to the FSD, you're basically just letting it rip.
Oh,
Right. So initially, right now, a lot of these agents require human confirmation. Would you like me to execute this action, send this document, send this email? Pretty soon, the humans are going to build trust with these agents and go YOLO mode and basically just let the agents rip and let the agents vibe. And this is where problems can happen.
so I want to dig into a little bit more detail on that in a second, but you also said something else earlier that was interesting, and I want to kind of tie these things together if you don't mind.
Of course.
So you said this thing that the agent should be treated like human employees at some level. But humans are never given, at least again, I wasn't ever given access to like all the bond traders' information. It was none of my business. And all like data was segregated, information was segregated, and execution was segregated. I'm talking about sitting on a trading desk, but I think it's a metaphor for what's going on in big companies, regardless of how they're structured. Isn't it going to be necessary at some level to sort of restrict the access that these agents have? You're right, because they are running on their own at some level. I don't believe that they're fully autonomous per se, but shouldn't there be some guidance or some guardrails around what they have access to so they can't actually get out of their lane, as you were suggesting before?
They absolutely should. In the agentic deployment of
Mm.
today, by and large, like, so if you have Claude Code, for example, connecting to your CRM, like GitHub, Salesforce, or your email systems,
Yep.
Microsoft or Google, it assumes human's identity. So it's not complete wild wild west, right? Like when I
No.
connect Cloud Code to HubSpot, which is let's say our CRM tool, it's
Yep.
my identity. So by and large, these agents do have human identity. It is contained, so your attack surface is for sure contained. The problem is with the autonomy, though. So what the enterprises are worried about it is that, let's say I connected to my email. Let's say you are the malicious actor. You can send me an email and plant instructions inside of that email. All I have to do is, hey, agent, can you tell me the most important email? The agent will read my instructions, and the instruction might just fool the LLM into just wiping my inbox clean
Right.
or exfiltrating all my email data.
Mm.
That's the worry. So yes, to containing the agent identity, I don't think that's sufficient. I think having runtime guardrail where every agentic interaction gets monitored by somebody, by a good AI. And like I always say, the only answer to a guy with a bad AI is someone with good AI
Right.
or the good AI developers.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what needs to happen. You're right, but it's that and having controls where every agent interaction is monitored before it's fully executed.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same thing internally in our company as well. You mentioned that you had some ideas about what companies should be doing right away. Maybe you can dig a little bit deeper into that as well, so our listeners and our viewers can get a sense of where the biggest risks are. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So look, if I'm going to give a, key priorities for these leaders, I would say, measure first, contain second, talent third. You know, skip the measurement and you are flying on faith and
So
vibes,
what
right?
are we measuring?
Yeah, so measuring, first of all, a baseline for every production agent. What's the attack success rate? If you're building agents, you got to understand, is it prone to being attacked? So you got to do what's called red teaming, or pen testing these agents. So you got to have a process in place where every agent that gets deployed or built inside, you got to go through adversarial testing. So you can act as an adversary, get few reps in place. If you do, make sure that you have all of that in place. Second one is containment. Build a kill switch. Do some reps on kill switch, which is if these agents are autonomously executing action, and a lot of people do tabletop exercises already in this area, but this time you have to do it through agent kill switch. Um, and obviously the talent is the last piece, and I'd argue that it's like the most important piece. If the CISOs and organizations really want to be at the forefront of technology, you got to hire AI native talent. Um, and a lot of CISOs that I talk to, they've already told their teams that, like, look, there are 400 people in the organization. I can promise you within a year, it'll be 100, and those 100 will look completely different. So it's your opportunity to be part of that 100 right now by being AI native, or you may not have a job.
So what does that look like to a CISO? Like, what does an AI native employee actually look like in this case? And are there enough of them around,
Yeah.
or is this like, refueling an F-15 in flight?
Um, I actually think that we're going to have to bring the planes down, rebuild the engine to some extent, and
Interesting.
obviously a lot of our enterprises don't have that luxury.
Not
So
really.
sometimes you may have to do it mid-flight, but what it looks like, and look, like if you look at the Striker team, we
Mm,
have um, amassed a talent at the intersection of AI and security. A combination of young and experienced people, people who haven't even, who have the fundamentals of how to do Python coding, but they are deft with these AI tools. They can move at speed. They know how to get AI to review your PRs. But at the same time, mix those people with experienced folks. I've always believed that just because you have an accountant GPT does not mean accountants won't have a job.
right.
As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, you'll need more expert accountants.
Sure.
But if the accountant doesn't know how to use the GPT to do his job better, he may not have a job for too long.
Yeah.
So embrace the tool. You need change agents within the organization, and may have to shake things up. That's what the time calls for.
So I feel like, again, just based on the reading that I've been doing recently, I feel like Palantir was the pioneer in this whole idea of having forward deployed engineers out there. Um, Big companies that are deploying agentic AI, whether it's through Anthropic or whether it's through OpenAI, are also using this model of FDEs. Is there a way for you, from a security standpoint, if there are not enough talented people, not talented, but with the right talent people out there, is there a way for Stryker to actually to employ this same model of FDE? And then you get this feedback loop as well. So they're not just there teaching people how to use these systems in a way that's most efficient, but also giving feedback back to Stryker itself, so you can actually tweak the tools that you're building or the platform or the infrastructure that you're building to make them better for the companies that are actually using them.
A great question. Just taking a step back, Palantir, now OpenAI. OpenAI actually just created a $14 billion company
EVCO,
just to do FD services.
deploy code, yeah.
Anthropic has that.
Yep.
Exactly. And then, the traditional GSIs like Deloitte, Accentures of the world are also pivoting
Hmm.
to become the FDE arm for these labs.
Yep.
The reason why Palantir has been so successful, really is one of the best companies who have modeled this, is that they hired really expert technologists where they said, like, look, instead of giving you software slop, I'll give you the outcome.
Yeah.
and that's why they have been very successful. High loyalty, great NPS, great NRR, on the back of these forward deploy engineers. To answer your question, at Stryker, we absolutely are thinking about it. We're helping enterprises because the knowledge gap continues to widen,
Yep.
where customers need help. Just because I give some software, they may not initially know what exactly to do, how to remediate that, how to deploy the whole thing. So we are going to be leading with FDEs to sort of help customers with red teaming, visibility, or runtime guardrail deployment, fine tuning, making sure it works for them. And then we'll leave the software behind so that they can sort of operate that autonomously. We're going to see more and more of that. It feels like professional services from back in the days. The only different spin is that the talent level needs to be top-notch, AI native talent who can actually help the customers get to the outcome they need versus just a software slop that 80% of the time, 80% of the customers don't even use.
Right. Because they wouldn't know how to use it. And I can almost
Exactly.
guarantee you that if I was one of those 400 people in the security division, that if an FDE showed up, I would be that person's best friend. So I could become as AI native as humanly possible, and ended up being one of those 100 people that was left over. That I can 100% guarantee you.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, and the other recommendation just on that thread to the
Go ahead.
CIOs and CISOs would be the only way the FTE model successful is that if you have alignment at the leadership level.
For sure.
If you give an FTE but they have no access and they got to go through the organizational bureaucracy, you're not going to get the outcome you need.
doesn't
Again,
make sense.
Palantir is successful because they attach themselves at the leadership level,
Yeah.
where the lanes are cleared for them to execute as fast as possible.
So can I ask you this as well, if you don't mind? A lot of this stuff feels to me like it's coming from top down, that the C-suite, that even the board members are saying, we need to employ or start deploying agentic AI, even if it's just from an efficiency standpoint. I think we can make an argument that it may not even be cost effective today. We can spend hours talking about like, what does a token actually cost and how much does it, you know what I mean? Like, if an agent is actually doing a job that a human was doing before, is it less or more expensive because they're doing more activity? We can talk about that as well. But how does the security problem change when AI systems move from just like generating answers? They go out, they find some information, they bring back answers to humans, to actually being active and making actions on behalf of users and businesses.
Yeah. So that's clearly the present. But before I talk about that, I think you brought up an interesting point about the tokens.
Yep.
Look, the way OpenAI and Anthropic is moving right now, within few years, maybe by 2030, they're gonna have about $1 trillion of business just on tokens. So $1 trillion worth of tokens. And you're right, where is all that cost coming from? I think that part of it is unfortunately the human cost, right? The software industry is give or take about $1.5 trillion. So you can imagine that some part of that will come from reducing the software slop and in favor of the tokenomics. But then some part of this is going to have to be OpEx, right? Where you'll have to have staff reduction. So that's an interesting question we have to monitor because yes, AI is positive sum, but somebody's got to lose in this whole battle if you're going to have $1 trillion worth of token. I think to your question, the last year last 2 years were by and large what we call the agentic 1.0 era.
Right.
In the agentic 1.0, human asks the question, the AI replies. And that's just a conversational UI.
Yep.
This year is the year of where the agent takes an action. So, last year, hey, look, I'm looking for some amazing gifts for my wife. Can you suggest a few websites where we're looking for this? This year is all about, hey, look, I'm looking for a specific ring on our anniversary. Can you go to Amazon and just buy this for me?
Right.
But where the world is headed is that by this time next year, with the introduction of OpenClaw and all the Claw variations, you will just say, hey, my anniversary is coming up. Here's my taste. You go figure it out.
Really?
And just go buy it. So basically the level of abstraction from human instructions to just the intent and the goal, and it'll get that task done. So I think it's the best of times. Humans beings are going to establish trust, just like we have done it with FSD. I think it's going to happen. It's going to take some time. And one must do it with obviously guardrails in place.
So it also brings up one more question for you again, if you don't mind, and I'll let you go. But are we suggesting as well that individuals, unrelated to enterprises, and I mean unrelated to SMEs as well, but individuals, like you said, like you want to buy your wife a gift, here's my taste, here's some things that I've bought in the past, here's my budget, here are the places that I normally shop, go figure it out. But then what do they do? Because if they're employing multiple agents, like if their kids have agents, if their wife has all these kind of stuff, what do they do for security?
And they, is it the enterprise?
No, the individuals, right? So we spent a lot of time
Yeah.
talking about how enterprises should handle
Yeah.
security, but if agents are going to be running around for individuals as well, because my
Yeah.
presumption is that the agent that you're using at Stryker for yourself is not going to be the same agent that you're going to send out to buy, an anniversary gift for your wife. That's for sure, right? Because that's going to have to live on a different infrastructure. But if that's the case, are we suggesting that individuals are also going to need security systems to be able to monitor their agents as well?
The right thing to say would be, yeah, don't put the stuff on these AI that you don't like others to see, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Here's the reality. And we have learned this over the last 15 years in the era of internet, cloud, social media. There's not a lot that end users can do. If you build the trust in the AI system, and if AI has earned our trust, it's going to know everything about us, our Netflix accounts, our Amazon accounts, etc. And if you want, your life to be automated through these agents, I don't know if you have a lot of choices. Now, the good hygienes, of course, making sure you have the right authentications in place and you do password rotation to these things. So when you give agents the access, you rotate it. But I mean, come on, 90% of the people
You see
don't
me
have that
shaking
kind
my
of
head like that's
hygiene.
not going to happen. You see
That's
me
not going to
shaking.
happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
So, look, there is hope and optimism for humanity. I think this will be a force for good. I am a eternal tech optimist
Oh, so am I, by
and
far.
maximalist.
Yep.
Yeah, mistakes will get made, and we'll learn. And these technology companies will get better and better at protecting everything they know about us. Yeah.
Okay, Ankur, I'm going to let you go. That was really awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today and for also sharing your insights. It was really, really great. Thank you again for spending the time with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
It was awesome. Thank you. Yep. Okay, that is it for AGTP Daily today. Thank you again for joining us. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on all of our socials on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you would like us to discuss on our upcoming shows, and ask us questions as well. We'd love to do a little bit of AMA. We will be back again on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you again to Martin Runfort. My name is Michael Waits. Bye for now.